Hey guys, we've got the new unit, diff unit, to go back into the WL toy here, and we've put it together. We've got a couple of images showing just it's nothing complicated. It just went back together. Put bearing on the outside here. There's a bearing on the inside, of course, to support the pinion, and we just plonked the crown wheel back in and just put the cover on it. So something that looks similar to this as it was there. There it is there. And you can also hear how bad that sounds. This is the one that was really badly worn. You can see there's nothing on the crown wheel on this, so the bearings are probably still good, but the pinion is just shot. If you look down into the pinion there, you can actually see the teeth are sheared off. There's nothing left of it, as you can see there. So all the teeth are broken off. And it's more than likely because of just wear and tear, because there's no lubrication in these things, which is really unusual to have a metal to metal component running from the factory with no lube. And as robust as this little car is, there's a weakness we discovered. And we had to tackle this. So we ordered some new parts because the pinion's busted anyway. So in the process, we also got a new crown wheel because the crown wheel's kind of worn away. And we put it together, but as you can see, we now have some high temperature grease in it, and it sounds so much better. That's how it should be. That diff will never wear. The chances of breaking this diff are next to none because steel is pretty strong in little RC models, but it will wear if it's not lubed. Now this one's very well lubed. That is actual high temperature grease for real cars, and I'm using it in a model car here. So once we assemble the front end of this car, we're going to have to pull the back end off, because I can guarantee you more than likely 9 times out of 10, if the front wasn't greased, the back one's not going to be greased. But the back diff is still working, but I dare say we'll have some wear on it, but it might be able, we might have a chance to save it. So once we've got this front end on, we're going to pull the back end off and have a look and see how that's doing. And if there's no grease, we're going to have to just grease it up before it totally fucking shits itself as well. So we'll get back to you soon. Take care, guys. We got all the new parts. Guys, I thought I was only going to get a couple of grub screws, but they ended up getting quite a few grub screws. And well, there's a few grub screws in per pack, I should say. I had a couple of bearings, but although I need a couple of bearings, I got a few bearings. More grub screws right there. What's this? More grub screws again. And we have the front end drive shaft where the grub screws rounded off, and then we just couldn't get them out, not even with heat, so we had to throw the whole unit away. That's the whole unit there intact. So it became a total nightmare to try to take these grub screws off, and we couldn't pull them off. We tried to drill them out, we tried to heat them up, wasn't doing. So we just ordered a complete new unit, and we've fixed it up. Obviously, you've already seen the diff. That's the diff there. We've already put that together anyway. One of the videos that's adjoined to this actually discusses the necessity for greasing metal to metal. So we're going to pull this back together. When it's back together, we're going to have a look at the front end and see how it rolls. Talk soon. All right, guys. We pulled off the rear differential assembly, and it is as I suspected it was. No lube, nothing on it, dry metal to metal. But this one hasn't frayed, so I think we've probably saved it. I can't see any broken teeth or anything missing on this diff. It is smooth in the action, and but it is dry, and we're not going to leave it like that. We're going to put some actual grease on it and make sure the thing stays nice and lubed. The front diff that we put back together and lubed up is working sensational, and it's actually much more quieter because there is no metal to metal friction on it. And we're going to do exactly the same with this, and just put some grease on it. Doesn't need much. Just a couple of dabs, and we've got a little bit of grease there. Just some down here. That will actually work its way around. But that is essentially all you need on these things. It's just a little bit of grease, just to stop it from wearing out. And that's already quiet now. It's working nicely now. It's got some lube on it. Give it a bit more. This is actually sealed quite well from any dirt that might get in, because it actually flattens out over the chassis plate on the bottom, and it seals off, so it won't get dirty. Nothing gets in there. So there's no reason you can't run a little bit of grease on this to help it stay lubed. And there's no way this thing's going to wear out now. It's got plenty of grease on it. I mean, the actual planetary gear set on the inside is greased, and that doesn't spin anywhere near as fast as what this thing does. So there's no reason, I can't see why the planetary gear set would have grease on it and the crown and pinion don't. The only time the planetary gear set inside that there spins is when one wheel is spinning at different speeds to the other. You'll get the actual planetary gear set actually spinning a little bit to compensate for the difference in the revolutions of the wheels. But this here spins all the time, and it spins at high speeds. So having put some grease on this now, there is no way this is going to wear. It's got plenty of grease on it, and it'll last us. And it should just go on now, no problems. And we're going to put it back together and get it running again tomorrow and see how it goes. And chances are it's going to be a nice quiet diff. It was actually still a little bit noisier. The front diff has gone dead quiet now. You can't hear it. You can actually, all you hear now is the actual motor, the electric motor in the car. The diffs are, or the front diff's very quiet. This diff is now very quiet. It's almost non-audible now. You can't hear anything. And all you're going to be able to hear is the motor spinning on this thing. So this is a tough little unit now. So still gear, still shafts, still everything. There's no reason anything should break. I'm actually contemplating getting rid of this motor here and putting a higher turn motor to possibly get a little bit more top end speed out of it. This thing launches really hard when everything works, and being all-wheel drive, it launches actually very hard for what it is. So, and the speed's still up there. The speed's still pretty quick, but if I can get another 10-20 k's out of it, I think I'll be happy with it. And I'll take it down to the track and give it a shot and see how it goes, just on having a little bit of amateur fun. But yeah, guys, that's it for this. And if there's any other changes in this model, I'll let you know. Take care. All right, guys, we're back again. Fix this diff up, put some grease on it, and she is nice and quiet in the diff end, now. You can't hear nothing, but what is a little rattly that we discovered is the main drive gear, the spur gear. So, which is this unit here. And we pulled it apart and just have a look, because it's quite noisy in there. And pulled it apart, and sure enough, no grease. It's dry. Yes, I know. Yeah, most model car spur gears don't have anything on them, but that's for spur gears that are exposed. But this one's enclosed, so if it's going to be enclosed, then nothing gets in there. and it's metal to metal, why should it wear out with the revs this motor pulls? You can throw a bit of grease on it, it'll lube it, and it'll quieten it down. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to throw just some grease on it. So don't need much, just a little bit on the, just to help it lube up and not run dry all the time. This car's got a lot of metal components, and I think looking at all the amount of metal components on this thing, they built this thing to get bashed. And up until now, everything we've done, it's tolerated it quite well. But there we go, it's already gone quiet. Just with a little bit of grease, the whole gear drive is now just so much quieter. So, you know, it goes a long way putting a little bit of grease on these things. It reduces wear and tear, which means less visits to the hobby shop for worn out parts. And the vehicle becomes completely more reliable. And something you all got to know out there about RC cars, I mean from my experience anyway, from having run them for 30 plus years, is that these things, although they're put together okay, relatively okay from the factory, they're put together in a way that they don't stay reliable for long, especially the cheaper versions. The expensive versions, yeah, they're okay, but there's preliminary checks that have got to be done when you're pulling one of these brand new out of the box. Realistically, all the screws, especially with nitro cars, because there's some vibrations through the chassis, all screws on the chassis need to be pulled out Loctite just to make sure that they've got Loctite on them. And if you've got metal gears like this, well, this has been a lesson for me now, because after the front diff completely shut itself, pulled it out, found there was no grease on it, and there's no grease on this middle gear, and there's no grease on the back diff, so these are parts that are just going to fail eventually if I didn't lube them up. And now you can hear it's nice and quiet. It's not metal to metal banging, so there's no reason. This whole car's not going to be quiet now, and it shouldn't last. Well, it should last. And but you've got to do all these checks realistically before you actually run the car. So when you buy a new car, make sure you check all the screws, shock components, wheel nuts are loose. Make sure they're not loose, because I've found plenty of new cars where components were loose. I've had cars where the actual mountings of the engine were loose, and because the engine's moved apart from the spur gear, it's ended up stripping the gears because it opened up the clearance. So do these checks in terms of before you run the vehicle. Electric cars not so much, but nitro cars, because they vibrate, and the same vibrations, they tend to shake things loose. Now most cars these days, they seem to have Loctite from the factory, and there are probably checks you may not need to do, but just for the sake of the vehicle, see if they don't have any problems and you're running back to hobby shops buying parts or lost parts all the time, go over all your screws, all the fitments, make sure everything's tight. And if it's tight, and you know the car's got metal, a lot of metal around it, like this, you might want to just grease it up and just make sure that everything's nicely lubed and you'll be fine. Thanks for listening, guys.